In the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, educators, students, and school administrators across the U.S. face unprecedented challenges. The need for innovation in education has never been greater. Welcome to Agile's Educator Insight video series, Lessons in Leadership from the Frontline, where we spotlight districts that have not only met these challenges, but surpassed expectations, making extraordinary strides in academic achievement and learning recovery. In part 2 of this year's series, host Meredith Biesinger sits down with our featured expert, Josh Perkins, Superintendent of Neshoba County Public School District. Together, they explore how Neshoba County has redefined success in education, offering a powerful blueprint for learning recovery and academic excellence. Their story serves as a guide for educators nationwide, demonstrating what's possible when resilience and leadership come together in a time of crisis.
Well, good morning. My name is Meredith Biesinger, and I am a public educator. I've worked as a classroom teacher, dyslexia therapist, and administrator for about 20 years now. I'm located in Northeast Mississippi. I'm also an education specialist for Agile Education Marketing.
Yeah, Josh Perkins, Superintendent, Neshoba County School District, and this is my 25th year in education. Served in several different school districts across the state of Mississippi, but I'm blessed to be in my second year as superintendent here in Neshoba County.
Are you from the Philadelphia area or Neshoba County area?
No, I'm not. I actually grew up in Lauderdale County, just south of Neshoba County, and attended West Lauderdale High School, part of the Lauderdale County School District. And I'm not far from my roots, but not a former Neshoba County, but ingrained this way now. So
how long have you worked for Neshoba County Schools?
This is my second year. So I'm in the second year in the district. And being a superintendent for my second year. So, yeah.
Okay. So what was that like coming, some superintendents, they've been within the district for a while before they take that position. But what was that like coming in as a new superintendent into a district that you haven't worked in before? It
was different. It was a good change for me. And you saying that, I spent 18 years in Enterprise in Clark County, just south of Meridian. Been 18 years there as a teacher, as a coach, as a bus driver, a lot of different aspects, served as middle school principal, and then was able to serve that district for 6 years as superintendent. Really never thought I would leave, but had the opportunity to come north to Neshoba County. And it's been different, obviously, but in a good way. It's good. Change is good. Sometimes change is hard, but it's good and has challenges. But it's been good. Great people, great community support, and people that have, laid the groundwork here prior to my arrival. And we're just trying to carry on some of those traditions. And it's been great being a part of this community, being part of this school district. And it's been good.
So I live in Mississippi, and when I think of Neshoba County, I think of the casino, Neshoba County Fair, the Choctaw. There's a lot of Choctaw history and heritage there. But why don't you tell viewers a little bit about Philadelphia and, the schools that you serve and the community there?
Yeah, it is. It's a great place, and all those things you mentioned are a huge part of Neshoba County and kind of what makes it what it is. The uniqueness of it. Neshoba County there's Philadelphia, which is the town in Neshoba County, the largest town in Neshoba County, but Philadelphia's public school district. But then Neshoba County, everything outside of the town of Philadelphia is the Neshoba County School District, and that's where we pull our students from, where our students come from. And it's ingrained. One of the things you do not mess with around here is the Neshoba County Fair, which happened at the end of July. So that impacts everything that we do, really trying to prepare for school, the beginning of school. But that week is sacred, and you don't mess with it. For sure. And when I came in, one of the things that had been discussed in Mississippi and in different districts, of course, was, the idea of, altered calendars or different types of calendars, or, to mention that in Neshoba County was kind of, you didn't do that because that interfered directly with the Neshoba County Fair in that last week of July. So you don't want to implement any kind of modified calendar at all. But yeah, it's great. That's part of the community. That's also part of what brings people together. And people share their ideas, their beliefs. They spend a lot of time with one another, and that filters over into the school as well. Just a community base, trust one another, believes in one another, enjoys being around each other, and that's it's a big part for sure. And then you add the Choctaw culture in there. A big portion of our student population, about 15% of it is Native American, as a Choctaw culture, and being able to ingrain that is really cool and unique to see that and how those people blend together. All different aspects are, of it comes together and forms a good school district that supports one another, supports each other, supports the different communities around that make up Neshoba County. So yeah, it's been great to be a part of, and it's a great thing that's going here, and I'm blessed to be a part of it.
It makes you unique. It's wonderful speaking to these superintendents across the country and other parts of Mississippi as well. Each city, town, region has a uniqueness to it that you embrace as you walk in as the leader of the school district. What's your student body population? I think Philadelphia is around 7,000 people.
Right. There's about 20,000 population of about 20,000 in Neshoba County itself. Philadelphia has about 7,000. We did not pull those students. Those students are part of the Philadelphia Public School District if they live in town.
Okay.
But there's about 20,000 people in Neshoba County that belong to our school district. So yeah, and that's again a good portion of those. Some of those were about 15% of Native American culture, about 6% white, about 18% African American. So yeah, it's a blend. It's a good blend of people. Very, very rural place, very rural school district. A lot of dirt roads still in Neshoba County. We have very dirty school buses because some of the roads we have to travel. But again, it's the small town, hardworking, that value the quality of education and value hard work. And that's instilled in kids at a young age. And that's instilled throughout the community of the way they grew up, the work ethic they have. And that's what's made it successful for sure.
That's important. I mean, if you can get that foundation in, then you only move up from there, in your students and your teachers. Coming in 2 years ago, what were some things that you saw that Neshoba County was doing really well already? Accentuate the positive. What were some things that they were doing well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest draws was the emphasis they had on career readiness, making sure people had opportunities for work-based learning, CTE side of it, making sure that was an aspect that was touched on a lot of different angles. We're doing a phenomenal job with that, being able to offer opportunities to kids from diverse backgrounds or diverse ideas of what they want to do, whether it's enroll, enlist, employ. There was opportunities for those students to do that. And being in Neshoba County, you have so many businesses that support that, and you see that from the outside. But being a part of it and being inside of it, you see it even more. You can't do work-based learning. You can't offer internships, apprenticeships. You can't do those things if you don't have the businesses that support what you're doing at the school level. And you could see that from the outside. Those industries that are willing to have your students come in, support the school, and allow them to gain experience. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. If a student wants to go off to college, I wonder if they're going to go off to college, but they're not going to stay in college forever. They're going to get out and get a job and have a career based on what they went to college for. So at the end of the day, you're going to have a career preparing for career readiness. And that's what Neshoba County has done a great job of, something that we're trying to expand on, every year, different ideas, different relationships, different partnerships with different industries in our county, and even on the outskirts of our county that draw some of our people and offer opportunities for our students once they graduate, even preparing them and allowing them some experiences while they're still in school. So that was some of the draw, and that was some of the things that I do, because I have relatives, I have family members everybody's not geared. Hey, let's get off to college. Let's see how we can score on the ACT, and then let's go off to college and try to attend a 4-year university and get a bachelor's degree or a master's. That's not everybody. And we got to make sure that we're providing opportunities for all of them. And that's what we're doing here, because, those people are needed in every aspect of life. Whatever we're doing, if we're plumbers and welders and constructionists and all those things, if you needed one of those lately, it's hard to find. But if you can have those skills, and you can have those skills, those are skills you carry with you throughout life. And that's what's needed. So offering those opportunities for those kids to have that is great. And something, again, like I said, we're trying to expand on here.
Preparing a path for them to be great community contributors, hopefully in Neshoba County, because I know that's how we feel. We want our students to come back, maybe go away for a little while, but come back and build up the community that you grew up in, On the other side of that, the Districts of Distinction Project, we look at schools that have just had tremendous growth, that we look at the numbers over the years, look at the data, and that data tells a story. And Neshoba County, the story from our perspective is there has been a lot of growth and success. So looking at career readiness, what are some things that you and the staff and faculty have implemented to achieve that success? Because that's, congratulations. It's been quite a jump there in scores and numbers in the data.
Yeah, it absolutely has. And, like I said, I've been here. This is entering my second year. Hard to believe we're halfway through another school year, but a year and a half, I guess you could say. So I really can't take credit for much of that, Meredith, to be honest with you. I'm just coming into that. Things that have gone on, people that have come in, put things in place before me. It's been wonderful. What they've done, what they've expanded on, trying to get those kids and set standards and expectations is this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to achieve and putting those things in place. But we're trying to expand on that, obviously always trying to grow. We've seen significant growth in our students across all areas, all aspects, from math to ELA, to graduation rates, to all of those things. And all of that's relative. All of that's, kind of intertwines at some point with each other. And that's difficult to maintain. Sometimes it's easier to get there. Sometimes it's more difficult to maintain that, especially the way our accountability model sets up and measures growth and how much emphasis is put on growth, which is wonderful. But it gets to a point where it's very difficult to maintain that for a long run. But, besides test scores, besides those things, there's so many other things that happen in our school district every day that are preparing children for life, preparing them to the soft skills that they need to be successful and be good citizens, as you mentioned, and be back in Neshoba County and have an impact. Because we tell people all the time, you're going to have an impact on your society one way or another. We want it to be a positive impact. We don't want it to be a negative impact where we're having to pay for you to be in prison or rehab or whatever those things may be. We want to try to have a positive impact and prepare you to have a positive impact on your community. So yeah, just looking to expand all those things, maintaining that, but then also expanding things such as our ACT scores. How can we get those ACT scores up? We're in a society, or we're in a state with an accountability model, which we don't want to get off in that. We could, but we don't want to get off way on that.
Sure. Yeah.
There's so much emphasis on certain things. And at the end of the day, how good is that, or how prepared are our students just because they're a level 5 in fourth grade ELA, or just because they're a level 5 in English 2 on the English 2 assessment as a 10th grader? Are they truly prepared for life after college because they're level 5? And the answer obviously is no. What else can we do? What else can we implement to give them, prepare them, so they are ready? And it's a lot of aspects of that. And, that accountability model and those grades and those growths are wonderful. We're required to have those, but that is just a small snapshot of the things that happen on a daily basis in our schools. It's we don't want to spend all our time focusing on that. That's what gets the headlines. So many other things that happen in the nitty gritty every day that is not seen, that we take pride in doing here in Neshoba County.
Well, I really appreciate that as an educator and also a parent, because, a child is more than a number. They're more than a test score. And like you said, a level 5 is great, but, are they kind? Are they courteous? Do they know how to work hard? Even just inferring information, you can take a test and score well, but how do you apply that information? Kind of whole education, preparing them to be, like you said, productive citizens, and hopefully Neshoba County, but wherever they are, to contribute in a positive way and to be good young men or good young women. It's just something to be proud of. So when you run into them in the grocery store in 10 years, they have a positive report for you. I think that that's really important and sometimes overlooked, because we do stress a lot on those test scores and that accountability. Sharing some things that you are doing in the schools to build community and to build that rapport. Is there an example that comes to mind?
Oh yeah, just everything we do is try to involve our community. And I mean, this thing we just updated our strategic plan last year. Did a 5-year upgrade of our strategic plan, kind of revamped the whole thing on where we want to go, what we want to focus on, and that's involving community, having community meetings, bringing in community stakeholders to share what they see, what they would like to see, getting their input. And then not only getting their input, but actually putting it into a document. But as we know, and as we say it here all the time, that document is only good as the people that apply it. And it sits on a shelf, or it sits on a desk, or it looks nice and pretty that's sitting on an office counter somewhere. Then it's just not very effective. But being able to put those things in place, and that's what we want to do. We want to take the ideas from our community. What do you want to see in our students? What do we want to see our graduates look like? What do they need to be able to do, want to be able to do, and try to get that input and then put it into place. So that's that's what we're doing here, continuing to try to expand on different things. The amount of work-based learning we offer, trying to get more partnerships with them so we can get more experiences for students. Looking at our CTE programs, what more CTE programs can we offer? And that's just at the high school level, but it all goes down all the way to the elementary. How many things can we expose them to at the elementary, from the music, from the arts? Can we bring in community partners and let them experience those things? We just had a career day at the middle school where we brought in, for our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, brought in different careers. They come in and they were able to meet these people that do different things. And these are people that are doing things right here in Neshoba County, all kind of different aspects of whether you want to be a lawyer, a doctor, a dentist, or whatever, or whether you want to be a plumber or work on a pipeline or go offshore and work there. We're offering those opportunities to let them see that. And so that's, if you can get kids engaged, everybody has something that engages them and they're interested in. If we can help find that at an early age, then it helps them. Attendance goes up, engagement goes up, performance goes up, and then they're more likely to finish and walk across that stage with something they're interested in. And they're not having to find out when they're 24 or 25 years old, hey, well, what do I want to do with my life? They have an idea then. Obviously, things change and life happens and all that kind of stuff. But giving them a foundation and an experience in those certain things is really what we're trending towards and continue to try to expand on.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, because why waste time and money trying to figure that out right out of high school? If you already have or a passion because you had that opportunity in middle school or high school, or, even at the elementary. I know a lot of elementary schools have community helper days, things like that, where they come in and they talk to the younger children about, what they do. And that kind of sparks their interest in, maybe I want to be fireman, policeman, or a doctor, like you said. Your teachers and staff, let's talk a little bit about the community there. Of course, everybody needs to be all in to promote this engagement. So what are some things that, teachers are doing at, maybe the elementary, middle, or high school level to keep that engagement going? Sometimes that can be hard to keep students engaged all year long.
You have a phenomenal staff. And I know any superintendent you talk to or any principal you talk to will brag about how good their staff is. And they'll say they're one of the best staffs I've ever seen, had, and all that, of course. But, truly mean that they're really dedicated to their craft, really want to be as good as they can possibly be, and making sure that they're serving every student that comes in their classroom or through their class or through their course. They want to provide them with the best education possible. And that shows, it really does. When you have staff members and teachers that truly care about children, not necessarily from the start of making sure they can score a level 5 on that ELA test, but just making sure that child is cared for, loved, shown safety and concern for their well-being, then kids perform. And that's what we do a great job up here. And that's an emphasis. Hey, we're going to make sure we love our children. We're going to let them know when they can walk into our classrooms, they feel safe, they feel secure. And that makes all the difference. And they do that. And that starts at the pre-K. The wonderful thing about Neshoba County School District, and it's unique and different than a lot of school districts, you can enter as a pre-K child in pre-K classroom, and you enter on our campus, and you're a rocket, Neshoba Central Rocket, and then you want to stay on that same campus all the way until you're a 12th grader, and you're still in Neshoba Central Rocket. And it's a lot of people. We have 3,100 students on one campus. It's hectic. We run 53 buses off of one campus. It's hectic and chaotic at car rider line. You don't want to be around when that's happening, but it's pretty special because it gives a sense of community. In a lot of districts, especially larger districts, there's different schools in different places. The elementary is 2 or 3 miles down the road, or there's 3 elementaries that feed one middle school, and they all have different come together. But here our kids are together from the time they're in pre-K all the way to the time they're a 12th grader. So it gives that sense of community. The elementary teachers know what's going on at the high school, and then high school knows what's going on at the middle school. And that's not always a good thing, but it helps when you're understanding what's being taught, what's being instilled and ingrained in your kids at lower levels or upper levels, and the expectations that they have is extremely helpful. So yeah, we have a staff that does a phenomenal job of staying engaged with themselves. Obviously, we know as educators, if it's the only way to make it important to students, if it's important to us, and they do a great job of that. It's important to them every day, showing up and coming to work, being at work. And that spills over into our students, and they see that. So yeah, they do a phenomenal job. Our staff, great support. across the board for them.
That's wonderful. And your students are so lucky to have that. I'm thinking, what a wonderful built-in support system for those kids to, if you have a teacher teaching seventh grade, math, if they have a question about that student, they have every teacher right before them on campus to talk about, what they excel in and what their challenges are to help them perform and feel that love and care that you're talking about. That's really unique and special. I'm sure it is chaotic too, but
it's really large. We still say there's 3 separate campuses, but they're on the same plot of land. Now that's a long way from the third grade building all the way to the high school, the other end of the high school. It's a long way and probably not a place you'd want to walk. But it's still right there together, and it does get pretty unique.
That's great. What would your advice be? I know you've been in the position for 2 years, so I'm sure you still feel like you're getting your feet wet some days, depending on what's going on. But what would your advice be to a superintendent who is kind of sitting back, looking at the whole picture of their school district and thinking, okay, how can I help? How can I engage students? Yes, we need to get our scores up higher. We need to get our, grades, our accountability, all of that. But how can I do that, but also make sure that the students are safe, successful, teachers feel appreciated, all those components that are important that you talked about. What would your advice be to that superintendent?
It's so much, and I think you're learning and adapting every year, every day. You're learning something and new strategies, what works, what doesn't work. I think it's just a constant change. I spent 6 years as a superintendent enterprise, and you're constantly learning and growing. You move to a different district, now been in Neshoba County, and you're seeing different things. But I think it's learning your people, knowing. Everybody responds in different ways to different things, but it starts. As we know, it starts in the classroom. Sometimes we get caught up in what's flashy, what's new, what's, the new trend, or what kind of new building can we construct, or what can look pretty on the front page of the paper. But at the end of the day, the impact that we have happens in those classrooms, in those buildings. Enterprise is a district of 1,000 students. Neshoba County is a district of 3,000 students. And people ask me all the time, what's the difference? It's just a little bit bigger. But the magic happens, as we know, in that classroom. When that teacher shuts that door and the classroom teacher and the students are in the building, regardless if there's 8,000 more of those situations or if there was just 8 more, it doesn't matter, but it's what's happening in that classroom. So I think all of your focus, your attention, your resources have to go inside that classroom where that instruction takes place. And you can't replace the classroom teacher. We talk all the time about the greatest resource in education, without a doubt, is the classroom teacher. You can't add a program, you can't add a building, you can't add another textbook. It's about the teacher and the instruction they're getting. So you want to make changes. There needs to be changes or improvements in growth and accountability, graduation rates, whatever. It's what's happening in the classroom is what's going to have the biggest impact, because having those quality teachers is invaluable. And having those teachers that understand that importance and show up to work is so crucial. And we're blessed to have that in Neshoba County, and we're blessed to have that across the state of Mississippi. And you see the significance that's happening, the scores that are coming up, the impact and how education is on the rise in Mississippi. And it's a direct correlation to that classroom teacher. It's sometimes the superintendents or sometimes as leaders, we like to take credit for that. But, I think the further you move away from the classroom, the less direct impact that you have on improvement and growth and accountability and proficiency advance, however you want to look at that. But making sure that that's what's happening in the classroom and knowing what's going on in there is crucial.
Absolutely. Your most important people are in that classroom, your teacher and your students. So,
and I think that's, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think that's one of the things that seeing what our teachers do, professional learning communities, and seeing them join together during their planning times. We've got 11 kindergarten teachers over there in the kindergarten hall, and 11 assistants, and then some inclusion teachers. So you go into a PLC meeting over there, and there's 25 individuals. They're sitting around talking about kindergarten curriculum, sitting there talking about students, talking about what's working, what's not working, what are they going to do next week, what are their plans for the first week of January. So it's having an idea of what's happening in their buildings and being, very intentional with everything that they do. And that's where the foundation happens of those students. I mean, our kindergarten scores have been phenomenal. The growth that our kids have in the kindergarten readiness assessment year after year after year is just a testament to their hard work and that the foundation they're laying, and we have assistants, but we don't consider them assistants. We just consider them another teacher. Because if you walked in the classroom, and I think that's another thing that makes it unique, you walk into that kindergarten classroom, and if you didn't know, sometimes you'd have difficulties finding out who was the actual teacher and who was the so-called assistant on paper, because they're working together so well. They all have their roles and they know what they're supposed to do, and that's just having two teachers in that classroom is what we have, and that's a blessing, and it makes a difference.
Yes, definitely. And teacher assistants, they work so hard. I mean, they're doing the same. They're mirroring the teacher that they're assisting. You're right. So
absolutely,
very appreciative of them. I was going to ask you, being in Mississippi, living, working in Mississippi, and talking to other educators, the whole Mississippi miracle that's been a hot topic for the last few years in terms of literacy. And I feel like the general consensus is what you talked about: intention, engagement, taking it back to basics, and just making sure that foundation is laid. Do you agree with that in terms of literacy in Mississippi or literacy in Neshoba County? Is that what you've seen in your pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, where you're really laying that reading foundation for kids?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've seen that improve. I think we're going to see it continue to improve. And, a lot of times the comparison aspect is not, start comparing yourself, and that's what we do. And that's how you're measured. You compare yourself to other people or other states or other districts. And that's what we do from an accountability standpoint. That's how the model lays out. How did you compare to your neighboring district? What does it look like? Well, they were a B, we were an A. And sometimes I think that's not necessarily fair. And I think it also causes a lot of times competition is good, but sometimes in competition, we're trying to succeed and do the best we can, but we never want another school district to fail, because that means students are failing and the students are not. In athletic events, sometimes we hope that person misses that field goal because we can win, but we hope they drop that pass so we can win. We don't want that to happen in education, so we can outperform someone, because that means someone is not performing or a student is not getting what they need. So, but yeah, I do. I think we've seen strides. I think there will continue to be strides put in place, and every year that taking those things and advancing that growth and continuing to make differences. Will that cause an increase? Will that cause us to continue to go from 50th to 34th or whatever? Will we go to the top 10? I don't know. You can't control those things because it's really based on what happens in other states. But all we can do is roll up our sleeves every day and do the best we can. Make sure we have quality educators and quality instruction going on in those classrooms. And then I think you're going to see the results of that on a local basis and across the state.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons we wanted to speak with you, is because, it's easy to look at that school district that's award-winning straight A's. They've been that way for 10 years, or the district on the other end that's been struggling for a long time. But looking at these districts that have had tremendous growth and have just really bloomed where they're planted, not, 2-3 counties over, not comparing it to a large city school in the South or something like that, but just looking at Neshoba County District and how you've grown and bloomed, and that engagement in that community is really apparent. And that's why we wanted to, get your insight and today and see what you're doing, what your teachers are doing, because, other schools and superintendents will watch this and they'll take some golden nuggets from what you shared and hopefully implement that into their school district.
Yeah, that's great. And we're really proud of what we have and continue to always trying to improve, always want to get improved. There's no, complacency is something that you fight every day in whether it's school or work or personal lives or whatever. So we want to continue to push the envelope forward and make sure we're doing everything we can to provide our students with quality education.